Hi everyone, Media subscribers. I'm Bertha. I am currently an international relations and economics double major at Claremont McKenna College in California, and I studied at the United World College of Changshu, China from 2018 to 2020.
Good morning, everyone. I am Uirab. I was a UWC Atlantic College student from 2011 until 2013, after which I went to the University of Pretoria, and I am a project officer at the Walvis Bay Corridor Group.
So what are the cost implications associated with the application process?
So in terms of the costs, there weren't a lot of costs in terms of application. There were no costs involved. The only costs I can think of, I guess, are like taxi fare to get to the interview location. But other than that, no, not really. There were, and I think we're going to get to talking about college just briefly. There were definitely a lot of costs involved with applying to university, and there were lots of applications for waivers. It was very expensive to apply to college, but to UWC, no.
Okay, cool.
The cost of attending UWC. So when I got into UWC Atlantic College, I had what you call a 50% scholarship.
Okay.
And that's what the national committee offered me, a 50% scholarship. And this at that time UWC for the 2 years was £49,000, which was $1 million, about close to $1 million over the 2 years. So that was just financially not affordable, not possible for myself, my family. So we had to go through a rigorous appeal to the school. We have to appeal to school and say, no, if we have been accepted to UWC, but unfortunately we are unable to pay this fee, this cost. The other thing was going to be up to, I think it was $350 for that I had to, my parents had to pay out of pocket for me, and that wasn't going to be possible. So we applied, and then I went for another interview with the school, and with two alumni of the school, and I ended up being paid the difference to what my parents could pay, because my parents said we can pay an X amount per year. This is what we are financially able to do. And then the alumni came together and paid the difference. So I'm actually I'm a national community student, but I'm also an alumni select, where the alumni of Atlantic College who pay a yearly or monthly tithe to the school, whether it's a £10 or £1,000, depending on where they stand financially, ended up paying the difference for me to attend.
Nice.
Yeah.
And actually, even on the courage to like straight up say, this is my limit, come through.
Yeah, I was gonna say also that I found that's actually, at least at my university, I found that was a very common situation with most students from the developing world, where most of us were either there on scholarships or because alumni decided to come together. I know I went to UWC Changshu, China, not knowing how I was going to finance my second year. And it was actually a miracle from the powers that be, because I remember in my second week at UWC Changshu, so our founder went to the UWC Norway. And so the king and queen of Norway were at our school, and they needed someone to give a speech about like the importance of opportunities or whatever for this assembly that they'd organized for them. So I was like, oh me, because all things speaking. So after I had given this speech, the next Monday I got this email from my school. So they had a fundraising department, because that's how, that just speaks to how important it was for. That just speaks to the nature of our school setup, is there were so many students who needed funding. So anyways, that office reached out to me and they said, hey, we loved your speech. We want you to attend the second year for free. And I was like, oh, thanks, cool. So that was how I financed my second year. But that, most of my peers from African countries, from Latin America, weren't so lucky. I know a lot of people who didn't get to, they're not getting their diplomas, or they're not getting, some crucial part of their educational experience because they can't pay, or because they couldn't raise the difference. And even the difference is usually a lot, not just because the IB is generally expensive, but also because the UWC model in itself requires a lot of resources to execute properly and effectively.
Yeah. And the UWC model, what are some of the like mind-blowing experiences you guys have had over the past 2 years?
Wow. So I will be I always say I'm completely honest about my UWC experience. The experiences that I've had weren't what I expected to have. It's not like what I saw in the brochures where it's like, oh my gosh, you sit on the glass circle with like your multicultural friends and just have coffee or whatever and talk about the world. While that was very common, you could have a conversation about the world at any given point in time. What I found, I guess it was both a blessing and a curse. But in the UWC movement as a whole, there's an era of not haughtiness, but there's an era of a noble higher responsibility to fix the world and to change the world, which makes sense because that's what the model says and that's what you subscribe to. So, in every assembly they tell us, you are the change makers, you have to go. They show us this videos of Greta Thunberg and they'd be like, yes, that's what you should be doing. Which was cool because it instills or strengthens that sense of responsibility, but it was also slightly damaging in that you are the 17, 18-year-old who is already worked to the bone and you're worked to near death exhaustion every single moment, every single second of your life, and you're still being reminded that you're not doing as much as you should be because why aren't you world famous for saving the climate? So that was kind of a bit, that was my hovering sense of just feeling the whole time I was there. But I also experienced a lot of humanity as well, and it sounds super corny and super cheesy, but I'm dying on the hill that for me UWC really did teach me that we are a lot more alike than different, because at first it's exciting, those first few weeks you're like, hey, I'm from Namibia, oh my gosh, hey, I'm from Greece, hey, I'm from Tajikistan, you hear all these cool countries that you didn't know existed, and at first that's cool because we also romanticize the idea of that multinational school model thing going on, but if you are roommates with that person, if you are housemates with that person, at some point it doesn't really, not it doesn't matter, but it becomes almost irrelevant where they're from. They're humanized to you, and you only remember again on UWC Day when everybody has to put on their national costumes, or when we're sharing different foods on like food day or whatever. So that's what it taught me, and that was important because now it's everybody is human to me now. It's not, and it helps. You're not like, I don't know, I only know the Oshiwambo, but you're not afraid of people anymore. You're just like, people are just people. I think that was a very important lesson for me to learn, and now I'll carry it to you. There are obviously others, but I think those are the biggest ones.
Yeah.
I think that ties into the purpose of UWC. UWC, as you know, was developed at first during the Cold War, where Kurt Hahn decided that he wants a school where the leaders of tomorrow, because a big reason that there was the Cold War was based on ideological and national differences. And they believe that by bringing leaders of tomorrow together, once people are humanized and you can see them for more than just their titles, whether it's Namibian or a communist or capitalist, that you see the human side of them and you get to understand who they are and what they are and how similar you are. So that is the beauty of UWC. And I also love the fact that at UWC, everyone that goes there achieved already. Just being at UWC, you have achieved. You are someone who is deemed as a leader in your community, wherever you come from. So you were in this hyper-productive environment where everyone's hyper-productive, or you are encouraged to be more productive. You're encouraged to be more creative. You're encouraged to go out and change the world. So I love that as well. And the thing that really caught me off guard was the difference in background that we come from, but yet we're all able to relate. Literally in my year, or within my time at UWC, there were children who were refugees from Ethiopia and Afghanistan, and at the same time there were kids of the Italian royalty, or the parents own big luxury brands. But we're all able to come together and relate on a human basis. So that really stood out to me That's what I loved about UWC the most. The fact that I could literally I could relate to someone from totally different backgrounds as me, and we can still have that relationship and that courtship and that kinship amongst us. So that I really enjoy that a lot. UWC is like any other school. It's not perfect. And I think not just the school, every individual experience is very different. You'll find someone like myself, I enjoyed my UWC experience. I have lifelong friends. I had friends of mine who came to my sister's wedding from the USA and Jamaica, who flew all the way to my sister's wedding. In 2018, I have friends who if it wasn't for the fact that they are based abroad, I would gladly make my best man at my wedding or the godfather to my son. But there are also people who can't, who struggle to adapt because of the fact that there are so many new experiences exposed so much more. People are away from their families. People are challenged beyond their comfort zones. People are homesick. People, that's something as simple as just having pup at home. Just having the homely experience. So UWC has the good, it has the bad, but the idea of UWC is something that we should definitely carry further and introduce into Namibia moving forward. Just that altruistic, experience, that's wanting to be more than you, and not feeling obligated not to yourself but to your community, to your nation, and the world at large.
So, like on that, what component would you take out and like just somehow throw into Namibia, like as a program offered locally or something?
So we've actually started something similar to that, something along those lines. So a friend or a mentor of mine, Upside Constantinos, I started this thing called the Manchild Foundation. Foundation where a group of men, we are between mid-20s to mid-30s. We are seen as the mentors. So we are trying to develop young men within the teenage years into the early 20s, and help them become holistic men, because a lot of the issues in this world are not based on ability, but rather based on passed on norms, how to behave, how to the amount of drive you have, how you relate to women, patriarchy, along these and so on. So we have all these issues that are male-based issues, societal issues that we're trying to address, and then also expose young men to things such as UWC that they wouldn't have done otherwise. Things such as the Alan Gray Fund scholarship, things such as Rhodes scholarships, or just expose them to this and have them aspire to something, and have them aspire to more than just what they can see on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. Genuine, especially in terms of like needing that I want to say support outside of like just your family, or outside of just the homies in your street or something, that there's someone that can vouch for you, someone that would be willing to put their money where their mouth is to like help you be a better person, and like considering what that has to do for the future of the country. So that's, yeah. Bertha?
I also wanted to add, I think I learned also that like there's stupid people everywhere, in the nicest way possible, in as much as we learned all of these cool things, and that's what I'm choosing to take away. I've also had deeply unpleasant experiences, which were mostly racial. It's one thing. What I've learned in a UWC is that first of all, I learned how to be black in a UWC, how to be black. I've learned that it's one thing to be black, it's one thing to be black Sub-Saharan African, and it's a completely different thing to be black Sub-Saharan African, a woman, and treat yourself like an equal, and show up as an equal. Because what I found is that because so many people were already adapting and, it was already a lot, people really had time to like confront, I guess, or at least in my UWC, also because we were an overwhelming minority, and particularly Black students and African students were an underwhelming, I don't know, who are in the minority. What I found was there were lots of experiences. I think people aren't used to Black kind of women who treat themselves like they're deserving and they're capable and who just keep space open for themselves. So I've had deeply racist and deeply unpleasant experiences there. But I think the most important lesson that I've learned related to like structural racism, whatever, is that a lot of our proximity to power and proximity to privilege and to opportunities, many times, yes, it's hard work, but it's also just a matter of luck and in the kind of family that you are born into. And I could learn that lesson because UWC Changshu had a lot of like filthy rich children from very powerful families because of how expensive it was. And looking at that and seeing, not to say that there were people who were undeserving or whatever, but I could think of a lot of Namibian people who would have done so much more with the opportunity, had they been given the opportunity at UWC Changshu. So that's also what I learned. And I think that ties into what I think we should bring back to Namibia is just a lot more concentrated effort in making sure that people or talent or potential doesn't fall through the cracks. And it's also what I've seen there is obviously, if not everybody who's there, I think is like a UWC year kind of person. Whatever, I think there's like a type, if you're being honest. And not everybody is like that type. And that's okay, that's fine. It's a matter of being open to diversity and to different kinds of people. But what I do know is that at least my UWC made a very calculated and strategic and intentional effort to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks. So students who are coming from countries where they were learning in their native languages, for example, they had like after care and they had English lessons at the end of every day. So that effort to make sure that nobody feels left behind, I think that's something that we also need to bring back here. There was no sense of like the math kids are the cooler ones or the debate kids are the whatever, the astronomy kids are like, it's just what are you interested in and how can we support that? Now, obviously that boils down to being well-resourced as a school, but I found that, here at where I was at Delta, for example, so I was there also during the time when they had stopped, the government had stopped requiring parents to pay school fees. And we would never hear the end of, we don't have money, we can't do this, we can't do that, there's no textbooks. And I didn't realize how much of an impact that has on your psyche in terms of your relationship with your education. So when you come from a context like that, you want to be very modest with everything that you're learning because you're aware of the very real and very significant limitations and whatever you want to learn. But at UWC Changshu, you could wake up and you're like, you know what, I want to learn how to make a virtual whatever website. And you learn and you ask for funding and you get it and you do it. So I don't think we'll be alive to see a time when Namibia has gotten to that stage, but I think that's where we should aim to be is to be so well resourced at a foundational developmental high school level, that one, nobody falls through the cracks, and two, people can really learn whatever they want. Because, I would look at mostly my Chinese classmates, I'd look at them and think, wow, they learn, limitlessly. We're told that the world is endless and shoot for the stars, and it's like, yeah, but from a structural, pragmatic point of view, I'd need to leave the country to do that, and it shouldn't be like that.
I was just gonna say, it's actually surprising how big the world is, like once you're like out of the country. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that, like, and it's stuff that is like for other people like norms, and you're just like, casually mind blown, let me just contain this and be surprised. And then obviously then thinking back, like, man, if everyone at home had these kind of resources, these kind of opportunities, like we could be like so much better as a people. So it's yeah.
I think also going back to what we can do at home, you don't have to be a UWC student to have UWC impact. I think it goes up to ourselves, people like yourself, Hilya, a leader, and I'm not a UWC student, but you are a leader. You have developed, you have experience, you have grown, and you have a strong skill set you can give back to the community. So I think we should be more conscious about our mentorship, whether it's in our families, in our community, because a lot of young students, I'm sure 16-year-old Hilya would benefit by meeting 26, 27, 28-year-old Hilya right now, and having a relationship with her. I think we should do that. We should provide a platform where people can speak on issues. Often, as Bertha said, you learn to become black. You learned what it is to be black at UWC, because you were never had to question that in a lot of the communities that we come from, what it means to be African. We need to provide platforms where we can speak about such issues, and speak about them openly, and not just belittle someone for having such an opinion, but rather understanding the knowledge behind that, or what built the arguments that they have. There's issues such as sexuality, which is issues in Namibia, patriarchy, political ideologies, economical ideologies. We need to develop safe spaces for people to discuss these things, to better ourselves, as a nation, as a people.
To just casually wrap up, what would next steps for you guys, and then also how UWC possibly contributed to those next steps? I think more for you, Bertha, since it's so recent, but even for you, Gerwil, like after that, UP, and then like now, where should the people find you if they should find you? Feel free to plug your social media and other things.
Okay, so for me, my next steps, one, graduating. Obviously, that's the biggest thing. Mostly because I think when you're like a black female African student in the space that I'm in educationally, there's the intense pressure to do well, because you feel like you're on a very rare and exclusive ticket, and if you don't do well, then nobody else after you is going to come. So you kind of feel like you are the part of the penetrative effort into a particular world for your community. So that my next step is to do things well in that regard. Other than that, I don't really know. I mean, there's a lot of community development work, but I'm in a stage in my life where, if I'm being completely honest, I'm still figuring it out. Besides the school work, and contrary to popular belief, I just do what I want, and I just seek out opportunities and go for them. Yeah, that's currently where I'm at.
As it should all be, just living casually.
I think, Bertha, don't worry about not knowing what you're doing, because some of us, we have grown, we are professionals, but we still don't know what you're doing.
You're just winging it.
Just going it day by day. So yes, UWC helped me a lot. I got into universities in Netherlands, in the UK, but because of funding, I was unable to go. That's how I ended up at UP. But it also helped me significantly at UP. It helped me from academic point of view. I was exempted by some first year subjects on a basic level, but it also made me a more worldly person. I was able to be comfortable in new spaces. I was able to be, and I was also more exposed. I don't like using the word woke, but I was more exposed to issues that many of my peers were not. And now professionally, I've really seen the benefit of UWC now. Professionally, I am in the business development space for the Namibian logistics industry, where we kind of do a lot of business development, policy implementation, and policy development for the industry. So on a daily basis, I meet people in government, international ambassadors, and that's where UWC really helped me. I'm able to speak to the Turkish ambassador comfortably, the Turkish ambassador to Namibia comfortably, because I've been exposed to people from Europe before. I've been exposed to people from Asia before, I am close to people who come from poor backgrounds, multi backgrounds. So I really have that comfort level around them. So it really helped professionally because I can relate. I can talk about the Turkish baths because my roommates spoke about them, you know, and just having the human element with people like that. And also, as Bertha said, too much is given, much is expected. You constantly have constantly you have at the back of your mind, you know, the thought that you must do more. Being a CEO isn't what you should be striving for. Like one would strive for as your 16-year-old self. Adding value to the country is what should be the end goal. Not just adding value, not just putting your company in the black, you know, and making the profit. It's more on adding value and also seeing how the people around you, the society around you, can benefit of the policies that you are developing within your professional space, within your private space, and seeing how you can add to that. Recently, with COVID-19, I felt a strong obligation to work with the truck drivers who have been affected by the regulations of our and really hear their points of view. So there's like UWC makes you more conscious about these things that otherwise you would not have thought about or cared about, to be honest. Yeah.
All right, good people, thank you very much for availing to the call. And I appreciate it personally, just because I like to know about things in general, so it's always nice to know about things. And I'm sure said viewers will appreciate it, just because where else are you going to get like first-hand information on UWC and what it's done for our people? So thank you.